Hello, my name is Chris Levels, and I'm the host of Politics and Prophecy. Ordinarily, I do radio, and I still do it. I do it Monday through Friday, every day at 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. And the topics I discuss range from politics to prophecy and how it affects our life today. I should also tell you that I am a member of the Tea Party. I am on the ballot for Lieutenant Governor in the state of Michigan on the U.S. Taxpayers Party of Michigan. And I'm not what you would call a conventional conformist type individual. I do have the ability, and therefore I use it to think for myself, come up with my own opinions. I do read history, and so therefore I am not what you would call on the plantation, as so many of my other minority brothers and sisters are. I do think, again, that we are responsible, as the Bible says, to study to show ourselves approved. So I'm going to give you just a little taste of what you can expect, at least for now, every Thursday. This is a video and pretty much explains the way I feel about things in America right now. So why don't we go there?
We call ourselves black men with African garb on.
Greetings, Afro-America. Are you a victim of white racism in America today? Does the thought of another white president scare you? Have you ever found yourself hating every iota of a cracker?
Every last iota of a cracker, I hate it.
Well, get your chicken and waffles to go, because Bond Action is hosting a Back to Africa ocean liner adventure. For a limited time only, get the reparations you've had coming to you and head home. Navigated by the same white liberals who already control your lives every day,
food stamps, unemployment insurance.
take a seat in the bottom deck and get rowing. Negro spirituals will be presented throughout the trip, and complimentary seawater will be served hourly. Watch as all your issues disappear upon arrival to your old home. Enjoy a simple, carefree life, as you will no longer have any rights or liberties to worry about or protest for. All of these benefits can be yours, but once on board, there is no going back. One-way tickets only, and we wish you the best on your new life journey. To sign up, register at bondaction.org with your contact information. Bond is not responsible for malaria, yellow fever, HIV/AIDS, gonorrhea, animal bites, infection, starvation, violence, tooth rot, gingivitis, rash, or black-on-black slavery.
Well, now you see what you can expect to see on this program from here on out. Because I'm tired of the foolishness. I'm tired of the multiculturalism. I'm tired of the political correctness that has destroyed our country, left the black community in shambles, and already basically in the embrace of socialism. I'm tired of it. Jesus Christ did not create us to be living the way we are living right now. We are supposed to be living in favor, not in squalor. We're supposed to be men and women of character, not beggars and those that are envious of others and choosing to try to strip the wealth, hoping we'll elect politicians who will go after the so-called rich in this country. So that is what you can expect to see. I also want to talk about the fact that when you get to know me, as you get to know me on the internet, you'll see that I am, let's say, I don't pick favorites. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican, even though I have to speak at the Republican meeting for Genesee County tonight. And when I get there, I'm hoping I don't get thrown out for what I say. But nevertheless, that's just the way it goes, because there's only one being that I really care about in terms of the things I say and the things I do. And that, again, is when I have to stand before judgment in front of the throne of Jesus Christ and have him dictate to whether my actions were just or unjust. So with that being said, as far as we're talking about eternity and going there, there was a man named Robert Byrd. He was a senator from West Virginia that died, I believe, this summer. And he was eulogized by people like Obama, Clinton, and basically they just declared him a good old boy, a great public servant, and basically an American hero. But this is going to be a regular part of the show, and it's called Molotov Mitchell. And we're going to see what Molotov Mitchell has to say about Robert Byrd.
According
According to an August Pew poll, 1 in 5 Americans now believe that Barack Hussein Obama is a Muslim. Time magazine also conducted a similar poll, and it showed that 1 in 4 Americans believe the same thing.
That
and
ain't
only
it.
a third of Americans believe Obama's claim that he is a Christian. As you should expect, the liberal media was positively apoplectic. I mean, why in the world would anyone think he's a Muslim? He's only stated like 1,000,000 times that he's a devout Christian, so why can't you inbred redneck troglodytes just believe him? Well, liberal media, as your flag-waving, Bible-thumping enemy, I have an answer for you. Just words, just speeches. Well, actions speak louder than words. If Obama is indeed a Christian, as he has claimed many times, then he should be promoting Judeo-Christian values and opposing evil as it is defined in Scripture. The Bible instructs its readers to judge a tree by its fruit, and Obama's fruit is blood-drenched and fatal if consumed. According to Christianity, those who pervert the faith and lead others to hell by justifying and promoting their sinful lifestyle will end up in hell themselves. And if hell is a manifestation of you reaping what you have sown in sin, I shudder to think of what Obama's pro-abortion, pro-sodomy eternity could look like. But let's get one thing abundantly clear.
You get a taste of Molotov Mitchell. As you know, this is the first show that we're doing, so please be patient with us as we work through the kinks of what this show is about, because I'm definitely attempting to bring you something that is different. My radio show is unique on the air, and I want to do the same thing here on the internet. So be patient with us, and we will get this. We'll get these things ironed out. I'm kind of a perfectionist. I like things to flow and go, and I'm sure that the gentlemen that I'm working with feel the same way. And we are going to bring you a good product, and we're going to put everything we have into it. But again, that was just a taste, the first of the Molotov Mitchell deal. And when we have the video that I wanted to be played ready, then we'll switch to that. In the meantime, I want to talk to you about the person that did that commercial that started out. And his name is Reverend Jesse Lee Peterson, and he is the president founder of Bond, which is Brotherhood Destinies. But he has some comments that I would like to share with you. And it says that the Reverend Jesse Lee Peterson came home last weekend for some food, family, and politics. Even if he wasn't looking for the latter, there was no way to avoid it. Peterson, who was in Barber County for a family reunion, is a rarity in the world of political punditry. The former Rebecca Comas School student is a staunch conservative who is also an African American. By the way, I don't use that term. I guess we can say black person of color, but I do not use hyphenated terms. So there's another reason for those of you that rely on your blackness as a god to hate me, but that nevertheless, it doesn't matter. First of all, let's talk about that a little bit. I wish my friend George Moss was here. But I have never been to Africa. My parents have never been to Africa. My grandparents have never been to Africa. Even those Africans that came here originally in, I believe, these early 1600s were indentured servants. The first ones that came here weren't even slaves. They did develop into slavery, but they were not African Americans even then. They were part of the British colonies. So they were, if anything, if any of them got citizenship, they were British citizens. In fact, there were no Americans here until, well, let's say 1783, 1776, 1789, whichever date you choose, that's when people became Americans. And there were no hyphens. So either you were a citizen or not a citizen. So if you want to call me anything, actually, I prefer Chris. But if you have to say anything else, you can call me a person of color. I don't care. Most importantly, you can call me a man of God, and that's what I strive for. So, getting back to this. He has harsh words for Democrats and even harsher words for President Barack Obama, who he predicts will go down as the worst, most hated president in history. The Midway native, who now hosts a television and radio program and is an occasional contributor to Fox News, I wonder why they don't put him on CNN, spoke about several topics while visiting the Bluff City last weekend, from illegal immigration to Reverend Al Sharpton's visit to Eufaula and even the role of Black Americans. Peterson commends Arizona for supporting comprehensive reform. Arizona has been under siege, he said, and the federal government has refused to do anything about it. He said presidents Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Obama all failed to address the need for immigration reform. They didn't address it because they wanted the votes. They were desperate to stay in power, he said. I was disappointed in President Bush. That's one reason a lot of white people voted for Obama. Peterson said he doesn't support children of illegal immigrants being granted citizenship if they are born in the United States. They're called anchor babies, by the way. He also doesn't support amnesty. His view on immigrations are not new. On his organization's website, there is a video from 1996 where he argues with a Univision reporter about the need for immigration reform. He criticized the Hispanic reporter because she asked a white man who supported reform if he was racist. Peterson later asked the reporter if she was here legally. Peterson said Obama's first 19 months in office, while not surprising, are troubling. He said Obama is a racist president who hates white people and hates Jews and is promoting big government at the detriment of Americans. He doesn't mind lying to get what he wants. But I'm surprised he's getting away with it so easily, Peterson said. He also said it's time for Americans and the president to quit blaming President Bush. We're worse now with Obama as president instead of better. He believes that Obama was elected president primarily because he is black. It's all about black racism and white guilt, he said. His election wasn't history making in the way it should be. And as a matter of fact, I concur with that because I've said all along that the wrong black man got to be president first. That Alan Keyes, Dr. Alan Keyes, if you were to listen to him and understand what his policies are, his belief in God, a true Christian and not one that fakes it and is actually a Muslim or whatever Mr. Obama is, I agree with that. So, Peterson believes the country is more divided racially now than before Obama's election. He also said that Republicans are often afraid to counter Obama because they're afraid of being called racist. Well, let's stop there because since I attained some notoriety by being called a black racist by the vice president of the NAACP in Washington, D.C., I think it's a badge of honor now because these people, you want to talk about racists, well, let's talk about those in the NAACP that sit up there and kill, support the killing of unborn babies. If I was to read to you the genocide, I probably will get into that about the facts and figures, not opinions, but facts and figures on black genocide. I think you would be amazed. And the fact that the NAACP supports it, I don't support going around killing black people, but they do. So you tell me who's the black racist. Now, you look at both parties, there's nothing to shout about. Peterson said one thing to come out of the Obama administration is the Tea Party movement. He often speaks at Tea Party events. So do I. It has united the people to see what is going on, Peterson said. Peterson has harsh words for other prominent black American political figures, such as Reverend Jesse Jackson and the Reverend Al Sharpton. Peterson said that Jackson has perverted the message of Dr. Martin Luther King. He also discussed recent comments made by Sharpton in Eufaula. I think it's amazing because on the same time that Glenn Beck did his thing, which was based in really and truly religious coming together, I should say, religious harmony and unity. Al Sharpton, through another gathering where he was passing out literature from Louis Farrakhan, and that's a man that even the Ku Klux Klan loves, and yet black people are still following Mr. Slick Hair Sharpton. So Sharpton said that black voters who did not support Senate candidate Johnny Ford were ingrates and flunkers. Peterson said such remarks are ridiculous. If a white man said the same thing, they would be called racist. There's a double standard. Peterson said Sharpton is of his father, the devil. It's brainwashing. When he says those kind of things, they invoke anger. Peterson also criticized Republican National Committee Chairman Michael Steele, a black American. He has said that Steele needs to resign. Myself, I find it curious that even though the Republican Party, as evidenced by the video that I'm going to share with you today, has had black candidates, who were the first party to actually have black candidates that actually held national offices, but they didn't elect somebody to be the head of their party until the Democrats had Mr. Obama actually become president. So, coincidence or not, I don't know, you tell me. He's weak. He's not a true conservative or a conservative Republican, Peterson said most black Americans continue to struggle not because of racism, but because of lack of moral character. He cited the lack of nuclear families among black Americans and said that black families and churches need to emphasize individuals being married before having children. That's a novel approach. He also said it was time for black Americans to begin earning their own way. Black Americans have to change their lifestyle. They have to take control of their lives. Peterson said he wasn't always conservative, but was once a liberal Democrat. I share that in common with Reverend Peterson, though he wasn't as politically active as he is now. We also have that in common. Once I became a Christian, I no longer identified with the Democratic platform, he said. You can't be a man or woman of God and support the Democratic platform. Peterson said the Democratic platform is about higher taxes, abortion, gay marriage, and a weak military. However, he is in a minority among blacks. A recent poll showed that nearly 9 in 10 blacks approve of the job President Obama is doing in office. What that tells me is that they're either ill-informed, misinformed, or don't want to be informed. Which one do you fall under if you are in that 9 of 10? That includes preachers and regular folks. According to his website, Peterson is the founder and president of Bond Action, a nonprofit 501c4 organization, and Bond, the Brotherhood Organization of a New Destiny, a nonprofit 501c3 organization whose purpose is rebuilding the family by rebuilding the man. He is the author of Scam, How the Black Leadership Exploits Black America, a book that I highly, highly recommend. From Rage to Responsibility and the 7 Guaranteed Steps to Spiritual Family and Financial Success Guide. He is also the host of a nationwide Jesse Lee Peterson radio show, a TV host and a speaker. Peterson said that Bond works with children across America and in Los Angeles through a home and after-school outreach. We've done this without one penny from the government, he said. Fox News show host Sean Hannity is among the individuals on his organization's board. Now, I have done a simulcast on my radio show with Jesse Lee Peterson. The show was a great success, and it is really refreshing when you get to sit down and have a conversation with a true man of God who is not afraid to look at a tree and then see what fruit it's bearing, and then actually call the fruit, instead of saying an apple is an orange, an apple is an apple. So with that being said, I think we're ready to go with the Robert Byrd video, so sit back and enjoy.
It's several weeks out of respect, but I cannot wait no mo. Over a month ago, Barack Obama, peace be upon him, eulogized Senator Robert Byrd, 6 feet of dirt be upon him, calling him the quintessential American at Byrd's star-studded funeral under the blue, blue skies of West Virginia. You know, Democrats never cease to amaze me. The first dark-skinned president eulogizing a former KKK Kleagle who destroyed black families to get to where he was when he died sounds more like quintessential Democrat to me. Like all true Democrats, Robert Byrd profoundly hated black people. And by the time he reached his mid-20s, he'd already recruited over 150 people into his local chapter of the Ku Klux Klan. In addition to being a Kleagle, he was also unanimously elected to the high position of Exalted Cyclops, which is almost as lofty as my favorite rank, Pretty Unicorn. And even though he eventually stuffed those sheets in the closet when it became politically inconvenient, he never stopped going after those race mongrels, as he used to put it. No, he filibustered against the Civil Rights Act for over 14 hours. He tried to block the nominations of Thurgood Marshall, Clarence Thomas, and Condoleezza Rice. He even dropped the N-word in a nationally televised interview in 2001.
There are white. I've seen a lot of white in my time.
Naturally, the Democrats in Washington called him the conscience of the Senate. If Robert Byrd's eulogy hadn't been nationally televised, it probably would have sounded something like this. Oh, Robert was a good white. Yes, he was. Not only did he create a substantial chapter of the KKK, but he took his white pride to the next level. Now, I know he hurt some of y'all's feelings when he turned in them sheets, turned in the hood, but I knowed he was up to something. I knowed it. The new colorblind Bob voted for welfare for black families on the condition the couples did not marry. I knowed it. The new tolerant Bob Byrd funded abortion clinics that only seem to pop up in the black neighborhoods. I knowed it. See, Bob just takes it to the next level. We Democrats have always opposed coloreds. That's just our way. And that's why race devils like Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass and Martin Luther King Jr. was registered Republicans. So light across the night for old Bobby Byrd, exalted Cyclops of the new KKK.
Now that's what I'm talking about. I love Molotov Mitchell. He is very talented and he gets to the bottom things in a very, very quick manner. So you can see that for most of you, I'm sure it's going to be a shock to know that Dr. Martin Luther King was actually a Republican for most of his life. But we're going to set about to destroy some myths, lies, historical revision that have been going on and spoon-fed to the black community for years. That's caused us to not understand, you know, you got these rappers and people out here talking about getting back to your roots. Well, for the most part, most blacks don't even know what their roots are because they start as American citizens here in the United States. And the fact of the matter is that the Republicans have been much more friendly to the black community than the Democrats have. But don't take my word for it because I'm going to show you empirical proof that you cannot deny. So that's going to be coming up, and it's going to be a series. It's called Setting the Record Straight, American Politics in Black and White. I've already played it on my radio show, but since we're on the internet, there's actually going to be able to be video there. And so it's going to be even more striking in terms of the visual proof that you have of what the Democrats that most of you support right now have done to us as a community and as a people, and even now are currently trying to return all of us, white, black, Hispanic, Jewish, into slaves into this country. I guess they enjoyed slavery so much the first time, they want to go back and do it again. So now, the only problem is that the Republican Party right now, you know, for the most part, you have these Democrats that are outright, they've been hijacked by socialists. Again, I just got done doing something that actually named the 81 socialists that are currently in the United States Congress and Senate. Don't freak out. I do mean socialists. They belong to the Congressional Progressive Caucus. They are backed up by the Democratic Socialists of America. So please, if you don't think I know what I'm talking about, before you start contacting me, calling me all kind of names, please go and do yourself and myself a favor and look up the information I'm telling you. See if I'm lying. Again, study to show thyself approved. So before we, in fact, let's go to, is that next one ready, guys? We can go to the next video there with Jesse Lee Peterson of the article that I just read. And you can see for himself or for yourself what Jesse Lee truly believes and whether or not he has a problem stating what he believes. Here we go.
Our discussion of what's happening in Arizona with the immigration law there, and we heard from one side of the issue. We want to introduce to you right now the Reverend Jesse Lee Peterson. He's the founder of the Brotherhood Organization of New Destiny, which is basically Bond.
Bond, yes.
And I think it's fair to say a conservative organization.
Absolutely.
Okay? All right.
Absolutely.
And you're absolutely also in favor of the Arizona laws.
I am. It's unfortunate for America that we have a racist, black liberation theology, redistribution of wealth president. Is bad for the country. And since being in office, he has managed to divide us more than we have been divided at any point in the history of America.
Really?
And
even more so than Bush? What, he divided us?
No, Bush united us more so. Obama
Well, in the beginning
divided
of the war.
us.
He said he was the uniter, not
In the
the divider,
beginning.
but I'm not sure
Right.
that's how it really worked
But
out.
now,
Right.
years later, we're still at this war. I think he's divided a lot of people.
No, we're going to be praying to God that we can get Bush back by the time Obama is through with us if we don't stand up. You know, I think that what he's doing in Arizona by suing Arizona, trying to prevent the citizens from protecting themselves, is nothing less than evil. Obama desires power. He wants more government control over the people. And it doesn't matter what the American people think. This guy is a far-left, godless liberal, and this administration should be ashamed of itself. But the good thing about what's happening in Arizona...
Don't sugarcoat how you feel. Tell us how you really feel about
Why should they be
Obama.
ashamed of themselves? I don't
Because
understand.
this is a federal law. It's not a new law. It's a federal law. And this government has
Well,
refused
no.
to protect.
It is a, some people would say, subtle change in the law, but it is a different law. Should states be able to do whatever the heck they want?
Pretty much. It's a softer law than the federal law itself. It's been watered down even, somewhat. But the state has a right to protect its citizens. You know, I work with a lot of Americans in Arizona, black and white and Hispanics, and they are fed up with the illegals coming in and kidnapping, killing, gang violence out of control, drugs everywhere, everybody and their mama.
Well, the gentleman who just
now.
said if they are law-abiding citizens that are good people, of course, some provisions for them to stay. Obviously, we have enough rapists and murderers in this country to begin with. We don't need more.
And now
I agree.
Yeah, now we have folks who are coming in and breaking the law. We have lawbreakers coming in and committing even more crime.
But Reverend, I don't think there's anybody
says no. Okay, you can.
I don't think
crime,
anybody
no
would
problem.
argue with you that lawbreakers should be sent out of America if they're illegal citizens. But you have a larger issue here. As I'm talking to you, I realize this, and I've been around these issues for a long time.
Yes.
You are a guy who sometimes feels like he's shouting in the wilderness as an African American who takes positions against what you would call the civil rights industry and the big government civil rights industry. Am
That's
I correct
right.
about? Okay. The idea that most Americans are not sure whether they like big government or small government. They don't know if they really want all the rules made at the city level or the state level or the federal government. Most people I work with are very comfortable with the idea that the government will solve your problems. You're not comfortable with that at all.
Not at all. And most Americans realize that we need smaller government. Less government in your life, the better off you are. That's what the Tea Party movement is all about. Unfortunately,
I don't think you can say most Americans. The Tea Party movement is vocal but small.
No, very large. I've spoken to Tea Party rallies around the country.
And
every time Obama opens his mouth, people joining the Tea Party movement. It's unfortunate.
It's
still a
less
very small
government.
group,
Bush was
though.
the one who implemented that he could listen into phone calls of Americans. So how is that less government?
I mean less government in that the government is making a decision for you and your family. For an example, look what happened to black Americans. If you want to know what socialism looked like, just take a look at the black community. 50 years ago, the government came in and became the daddy of the family. These corrupt so-called civil rights leaders became the head of the people, including the godless black preachers. And now we have 96% of black Americans voted for black, racist, liberal, redistribution of wealth, godless president.
Can I just, I'm sorry.
Even after this guy,
I'm
let me just say this, even after he's been in the White House for over a year and a half, over 90% of black Americans still support this guy, and that is a government mentality, a liberal, they have lost sense of
I
themselves.
have a real issue with you, and I don't want to be rude and interrupt.
Oh, no,
you,
no
but,
problem.
But you keep talking. with you continuing to say the president is godless, these black preachers
Racist.
are godless. I'm sorry, I have a real issue with that. How do you know they're godless?
Well,
who are you to say that they do not have God?
That's a good point. Obama supports abortion at any point. He supports same-sex marriage. He want to overturn don't tell in the military.
He does not support same-sex
yes,
marriage.
He does. And he
So
want to overturn.
no, he doesn't.
Well, he's such a liar. We really don't know what he wants.
All politicians are.
But
That's
the
no
point,
way to answer a question, to
but
say
the
he's
point,
such a liar, you don't know
the
what
point
he's
is
saying.
that 85% of black people said they are Christians, that they support God, but they are lying because you can't support good and evil. God is of good, and by them supporting Barack Obama, they also support the godless ideas that he stands for.
It's not so black and white, though. It's not so black and white. There's a lot of gray, in
No,
life.
there's no gray. It's either right or it's wrong.
So
it's either good or evil.
Reverend,
There is no gray.
Wow, okay, this is too short. You're an unusual...
I believe right and wrong. I just don't think it's up to you to decide who is godless and who
No,
is
if we
not.
don't recognize right from wrong, how will we know?
Yeah.
We have to recognize it.
All right,
So I
Reverend,
recognize wrong, I recognize
we are out of
right.
time. We got a little off subject here.
It's
but,
interesting.
yeah, a little off subject, and we'll bring you back with Al Sharpton. It'll be a lot of fun.
I would love that.
All right, Reverend Peterson, thank you so much. Shark Week starts this weekend. We are here.
All right, and we're back. So now you got to meet the Reverend Jesse Lee Peterson in person for those of you that haven't heard of him. He is indeed a person who speaks from the heart, and he is speaking truth. Whether or not you want to accept that truth, that's between you and God. But at least you will be able, or you will not be able to say that you didn't know it in the day of judgment. So I'm here not to condemn you, but to inform you, to educate you, to enlighten you to what's going on today. We owe it to ourselves, our children, and our grandchildren to try to keep the few freedoms that we do have left and perhaps even reverse this course that we've been on. So let's go on to Herman Cain. Herman Cain is out of Atlanta, Georgia. And before I say that, I just want to put it out there that I do have a website, and it is realityrevival.com, where you can hear archived messages or archived programs, actually, of all my shows dating back to February or March, I believe. And there are many other links to other sites on the website to, again, let you know what's really happening, not from CNN, not from MSNBC, not even from Fox or the ABC networks, ABC, CBS, the Alphabet networks, and NBC, but actual live reporting of what's going on. So you can also listen to my radio show on WSNLradio.com. Now that's live at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you would like to catch it again, that's WSNLradio.com. My website is realityrevival.com. You can go there. You can support my radio program. I ask for partners with me so that I don't have to be let's say I have to be worried about sponsors or advertisers, and I'm asking for a grassroots campaign of $10.75 from my partners a month, or make one lump payment of $129. That's all I'm asking. And in these hard times of economics, that's why I've taken that $10.75 figure in order to become a partner of politics and prophecy and keep the truth coming. So let's talk about the truth. And by the way, this is the initial show, but every show is not going to be about the perceived grievances of Black Americans and so forth and so on. There's going to be a lot of other things. But since I am a person that is considered in the census a person of color. I do feel like I have the right to speak on it, but actually, in truth, I feel like everybody has a right to speak on it because God is no respecter of persons, race, ethnicity, gender, and so we should be able to speak the truth. It doesn't matter from who it's coming from. But Herman Cain, he accuses the NAACP of doing dirty work for Obama and Congress. The NAACP is doing the dirty work for the failed policies of the Obama administration and the congressional Democrats. Accusing the Tea Party movement as being racist shifts the attention from the mishandling of the Gulf oil tragedy. The failed $862 billion stimulus spending bill, and the lack of private sector job growth, and an economy stuck on stalled. The NAACP's accusation also shifts attention away from the problems in the black community, which they ignore in their name calling rhetoric, such as increased high school dropout rates, increased incarceration rates, increased out of wedlock birth rates, and unemployment rates among blacks that are 50% higher than the national average. Now, while we're on that, in 2008, 41% of all children in the United States were born out of wedlock. Out of that number, 72% were black, 53% Hispanic, 29% white, 17% Asian. So for those of you out there that want to blame some boogeyman white man for your current troubles, I want to know which boogeyman white man. Was it the Klan that told you to jump on that woman and do what you did? Was it that Klan that told you to open your legs to that loser with no job, with tattoos all over him, with no hope of success? Who was it that made you live the way you do? As I drive out of here and go down the street and see you walking down the street with your hair undone, looking like I don't know what, who is it to blame? And then the NAACP wants to blame white folks, wants to blame people whose yards look nice, wants to blame people that when they go to gatherings, they leave no trash, but the place is cleaner than when they left it. So, just a thought. Anyway, although my invitation to the NAACP annual convention in Kansas City got lost in the mail, I suspect there were plenty of speeches blaming George W. Bush and greedy capitalists for those problems. When NAACP spokesperson Leila McDowell says, hardcore white supremacist organizations have participated in and occasionally led Tea Party rallies, the mainstream lapdog media jump all over such a blatantly baseless claim. When asked what the claim was based on, she said academic research on the Tea Party movement. Well, let me tell this idiot something. I have actually been to the Tea Party rallies. So I have yet to have been called nigger. I have yet to have seen a noose that I thought was going to be used on me. And this isn't academic research. This is real life research where I've actually been a speaker at these places. Well, Herman Cain says of the nearly 24 Tea Party rallies at which I have been a keynote speaker, I have yet to see or hear anyone doing a survey, poll, or research asking attendees if they were white supremacists. Nor has any of the Tea Party organizers indicated that such research was ever requested or being done. Black people, when you going to get tired of your own folks lying to you? Although it was not a scientific test, at a Georgia Tea Party event I attended July 16th, which included a live broadcast of my radio show, I asked all of the white supremacists and KKK members to raise their hands. There were none. When I asked a show of hands of all the people who want the big government spending to stop, the legislative abuse to stop, and the coming tax increases to be stopped, more than 3,000 attendees almost cheered the roof off the place. Since there have been thousands of Tea Party and citizen rallies across the country beginning in early 2009, those researchers obviously attended the ones I did not attend. I would love to see the research or hear or see one audio or video clip of a Tea Party speaker uttering one racist word. It does not exist. It is unfortunate that a once relevant and impactful organization is looking for relevance in the wrong place, namely race. It should be about solving problems and uniting people instead of dividing people with baseless claims of racism. I have also been called a racist, among other names, for disagreeing with the president's policies and those of the Democrat-controlled Congress. But that does not discourage me or other black conservatives from fighting for what we believe or challenging so-called black establishment organizations such as the NAACP. Tea Party people are not racist. They are patriotic Americans who want the greatest country in the world to remain the greatest country in the world. We are exercising our right to speak out against bad public policy, even if the president is black or half black, whatever. This isn't about race. This is about results. And the results by this administration and this Congress, the results are missing in action. The NAACP has lost its relevance and its way forward, and that's a sin. So I promised you that we were going to present you with some facts on this show concerning the relationship between Democrats and blacks and what the history truly is. So at this time, we're going to send you to Setting the Record Straight, American Politics in Black and White.
We're here in an African American museum to talk about African American history, so much of which is truly unknown today. For example, if you know of James Armistead, a black patriot inspired during the American Revolution who helped make possible the 1781 Yorktown victory that established America as an independent nation. Or Peter Salem, a black patriot who was a hero of the 1775 Battle of Bunker Hill. He also fought as one of the legendary Minutemen and was a soldier at the battles of Saratoga and Stony Point. And in the famous picture of the 1776 crossing of the Delaware on Christmas night, two men depicted at the front of the boat include Prince Whipple and Oliver Cromwell, two black patriots who served with George Washington and the American generals during the Revolution. Few are aware that many of the soldiers who fought during the American Revolution were black. And unlike the later segregated regiments in the Civil War, many of the units in the American Revolution were fully integrated, with black patriots fighting and dying side by side with their white fellow comrades and soldiers. While this part of our history is unknown today, Americans knew this information in previous generations because of the writings of black historians such as William Nell. Nell was the first black American to hold a post in the federal government. In 1852, he authored this work, Services of Colored Americans in the Wars of 1776 and 1812, and 3 years later, in 1855, he penned this work, The Colored Patriots of the American Revolution. Despite such extensive works, many of our early black heroes and patriots are unknown today, and equally unknown is much of what occurred in black political history. That history will surprise and perhaps even shock you, but as you will see, it's a history based on indisputable facts and documents. Too often today, only a handful of the heroes from black history are presented, much like showing only a snapshot or two out of several albums of photos. Too much is not seen, and often too much is wrongly assumed just from the little that is seen. One of the world's oldest history books, the Bible, offers a good lesson on this point. We all know the Bible story of David's victory over Goliath, yet the Bible also tells the story of David's adultery with Bathsheba and of his failure with his son Absalom. If all we learned about David were his failures, that would not be the complete story. On the other hand, if all we learned about David were his victories, neither would that be the complete story. It takes all of these accounts to present the full, accurate story. So from the Bible, and from former writers in black history such as William Nell, Carter Woodson, Benjamin Quarles, Joseph Wilson, Booker T. Washington, Edward Johnson, and others, we learn that you must present the good, the bad, and the ugly to get the full story not only of history in general, but of African American political history in particular. Although the history of black Americans begins in 1619 with the arrival of the first slaves in America, the political history of black Americans actually begins in the year 1787, the year in which the American political system was constructed. 1787 was the year the Constitution was written. Today, many critics assert that the Constitution was a pro-slavery document, and to prove this, they point to the 3/5 clause, claiming that the Constitution says that blacks are only 3/5 of a person. One of the earliest black Americans to investigate this claim was the famous abolitionist Frederick Douglass. Douglass had been born into slavery and remained a slave until he escaped to New York. 3 years after his escape, he delivered an anti-slavery speech in Massachusetts. He was promptly hired to work for the state's anti-slavery society, and he also served as a preacher at Zion Methodist Church. During Douglass's first years in freedom in the North, he studied at the feet of abolitionist William Lloyd Garrison, who taught him that the Constitution was a pro-slavery document. Douglass accepted this claim, and his early speeches and writings reflected that belief. However, Douglass later began to research the issue for himself. He read the Constitution. He read the writings of those who wrote the Constitution, and what he found revolutionized his thinking. He concluded that the Constitution was not a pro-slavery document, but rather it was an anti-slavery document. He explained,
I was on the anti-slavery question fully committed to the doctrine touching the pro-slavery character of the Constitution. I advocated this with pen and tongue according to the best of my ability. However, upon a latter reconsideration of the whole subject, I became convinced that the Constitution of the United States not only contained no guarantees in favor of slavery, but on the contrary, it is in its letter and spirit an anti-slavery instrument demanding the abolition of slavery as a condition of its own existence as the supreme law of the land. Now, here was a radical change in my opinions, brought directly when I first escaped from slavery into contact with a class of abolitionists regarding the Constitution as a slave-holding instrument. Now, it's not strange that I assumed the Constitution to be just what their interpretation is, but I was now conducted to the conclusion that the Constitution of the United States was not designed to maintain and perpetuate a system of slavery, especially as not one word can be found in the Constitution to authorize such a belief.
but if the Constitution is not pro-slavery, then what about the 3/5 clause? Had Douglass not read that clause? Yes, he had. Then how could he conclude what he did about the Constitution? It was very simple. He understood that the 3/5 clause dealt only with representation and not the worth of any person. You see, the Constitution had established that for every 30,000 inhabitants in a state, that state would receive one representative to Congress. The Southern states saw this as an opportunity to strengthen slavery. Slaves accounted for much of the Southern population. In fact, almost half the inhabitants of South Carolina were slaves. Therefore, slave owners could simply count their slaves as regular inhabitants, and by so doing could almost double the number of their pro-slavery representatives to Congress. Of course, the anti-slavery leaders from the North strenuously objected to this. After all, slave owners did not consider their slaves to be persons, but only property. These slave owners were therefore using their property, that is, their slaves, to increase the power of the slave states in Congress. The anti-slavery leaders fully wanted free blacks counted, but not slaves, if counting slaves would increase the power of slave owners. They understood that the fewer the pro-slavery representatives to Congress, the sooner slavery could be eradicated from the nation. Gouverneur Morris, a signer of the Constitution and a strong opponent of slavery, therefore argued,
upon what principle is it that slaves shall be computed into the representation? Are they men? Then make them citizens and let them vote. But the admission of slaves into the representation comes to this: that the inhabitant of Georgia and South Carolina who goes to the coast of Africa and in defiance of the most sacred laws of humanity tears his fellow creatures from his dearest connections and damns them to the most cruel bondage. Now, he shall have more votes in the government instituted for the protection of the rights of mankind than the citizen of Pennsylvania or New Jersey who condemn the practice of slavery.
Morris objected to counting slaves because he did not want to reward slaveholders and increase their power. Another ardent anti-slavery delegate at the Constitutional Convention, Luther Martin, similarly explained,
"No principle can justify taking slaves into calculating the number of representatives that a state should have in the federal government. It is absurd to increase the power of the state in proportion as that state violates the rights of freedom. It encourages the slave trade. And it makes it in the interest of the states to continue in that vile traffic. And it will prevent slaves from being considered either men or citizens."
Several other founders, including James Wilson and Elbridge Gerry, even used the slaveholders' own arguments against them. For example, Luther Martin proposed,
"If slaves are considered property, then what renders this property different from any other type of property? That is, why should slaves as property be taken into account rather than horses, cattle, mules, or any other type of property?"
These anti-slavery founders argued that if the South was going to count its property, that is, its slaves, in order to get more pro-slavery representation in Congress, then the North would count its property, that is, its houses, cows, and horses, to get more anti-slavery representation in Congress. Of course, the South objected just as strongly to this proposal as the North had objected to counting slaves. The final compromise was that only 60% of slaves, that is, 3/5 of slaves, would be counted to calculate the number of Southern representatives to Congress. In other words, it would take 50,000 slaves rather than just 30,000 before slave-holding states could get a representative in Congress, thus greatly reducing the number of representatives to Congress from states with extraordinarily large slave populations. This, then, is the 3/5 clause. It had nothing to do with the worth of any individual. In fact, free blacks in the North and the South often were extended the full rights of a citizen and regularly voted, both in the North and the South. The 3/5 clause had to do only with representation. It was an anti-slavery provision designed to limit the number of pro-slavery representatives in Congress. This is why Frederick Douglass, unlike many today who have never taken time to study the Constitution, could emphatically declare that the Constitution, all of the Constitution, was anti-slavery. In 1789,
Well, now I hope you enjoyed that first portion. And whether you enjoyed it or not, the intent is actually to educate you. I am just as guilty in my ignorance in a lot of areas in terms of American history because of historical revision, because the progressives have wanted to, I guess, destroy us in terms of us not understanding where our freedoms come from. But the Bible says that where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. So as long as we continue down the path of trying to kick God out of politics, out of our homes, out of our entertainment, out of our businesses, out of our schools, and most importantly, out of our churches, as long as we continue to go down this road and this path, it is not going to end well. So it is time. It shouldn't be a question of why there are so many white people at a Glenn Beck rally. The question is, why aren't there more black people? We're the ones that experienced slavery in this country. We're the ones that should not want to go back. And we should not be supporting those people who consider themselves elite, that think they know what is best for you to determine your future that God actually has seen its expected end. So keep that in mind, because we're going to be, the basis of my show is going to be about who is pulling the levers of society. What are they trying to accomplish? As in my radio show, I talk about pulling off the covers of spiritual wickedness. That's what I'm going to do for you over the internet. And I'm going to do my best as God leads me, and gives me the fearlessness to continue doing what I'm doing in the face of criticism, threats. Doesn't matter, because they can only kill my body but not my spirit. So it's up to me to live to the best of my ability the way I can. Again, you can go to www.realityrevival.com, hear radio shows at your convenience. You can go to WSNLradio.com, listen to me live at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can donate to the show at G&L Communications, Post Office Box 13171, Flint, Michigan 48503. Again, that's G&L Communications, Post Office Box 13171, Flint, Michigan 48503. You can donate, become a partner at $10.75 a month, or a one-time fee of $129, not a fee but a gift. So if you would like to continue hearing the message and the information that I'm going to bring to you, then please help me to do so, because I have contributed a lot of my own money to get to this point, but I need your help. And I'm not asking for exorbitant amounts of money in order to do so. But as God blesses your heart to do so, then please give. But if you cannot afford to, please continue to listen. It doesn't matter. Silver and gold, if you don't have it, just listen, so that I actually will be blessing you. And if you want to send me a note of encouragement, you can do so at politicsandprophecy@gmail.com. My Facebook page is Politics and Prophecy. So hopefully we are going to be establishing a relationship that will last for as long as God pleasures it to do so. And I will continue to do my best, bring you information that you've never heard before from a perspective that you've never heard before. And definitely do it in truth and in love, not being mean-spirited, but just bringing it to you as it is, because the truth shall make you free. So as I sign off, I'm going to say, God bless. I love each and every one of you. I look forward to sharing time with you next time, Lord willing. Bye-bye.